to review Risk Love.
So big change number one, no continents, cities, and then also there are crowns and how you win the game. So yeah, already you might notice that there aren't any continents or planets or whatever else you're used to conquering in a Risk game. Instead, players vie for control of these cities, each of which is worth one of these spiky hoo-ha things. Right, yes, crowns. Essentially what you jaded, withered old board gamers out there would call a victory point. Get 7 and you win. Remember how no one wanted to play Risk on family game night because it takes hours and hours to actually truly win? And during that process, all but 2 final people are knocked out, leaving everyone else to watch in miserable, defeated silence? Well, Europe fixes this by making you play for VPs instead. All players can still be in at the end of the game, and victory can be achieved in a really shockingly short period.
Alright, so look at this card here. It shows the order of battle and how naughty a particular dice roll in that turn of the battle is. Basically, these special units, the siege weapons, archers, and cavalry, in that order, all get to throw extra dice at the enemy army that aren't compared to defensive dice. Instead, they have hit ranges. Archers hit on 5s and 6s, cavalry hit anything 3 and up, and so on and so forth. You get the picture. This adds a new layer of strategy. Archers cost less than cavalry, but fire before them. But they also only hit on 5s and 6s. Siege weapons get to shoot 2 dice per siege weapon that you have. But they also cost a preposterous amount of gold. You get the picture here. You tailor your army to what you think will do the most damage. This is neat, and it livens up battles a bit from the classic game. It also can be used to make them a bit shorter because, man, these special units really do rack up the body counts fast. So here's probably the biggest thing about Europe. Orders. Orders are these cards here. They're basically the actions that you could take. You can choose a couple of these at a time, you play only those 2 cards in sequential turns, discard them, and go through the rest of your stack of orders until they're all done. Basically, you can only tax, expand, maneuver, and whatever else X amount of times during a turn cycle. Plus, you have to do the 2 things that you picked out beforehand, no matter how the board changes, or if someone is knocking on your door with a big axe and a beer stein made out of the skulls of one of your former peasant lads. You really have to try to predict on what the map is going to look like 2, 3, 4 turns from now, because you don't want to, for example, use all your tax orders, which double as spend orders, to gain a lot of money without being able to, I don't know, spend that money on troops to defend yourself from aforementioned guy with a big axe and a beer stein made out of the skull of one of your peasant lads.
Fine. Okay, so I know I said I wouldn't talk about the rules, and that's pretty much what I proceeded to do, but it was important for the setup. Look at it again. Think about the changes. Wow, you say. They've done it. Look at these minis. They've added a pretty fair amount of strategic depth that you said was lacking strategic depth, and without compromising the basic tenets of Risk. This looks like a great game. Well, about that. Listen, yeah, they added a lot of stuff that fixes some of the original problems with the classic version. But when adding a bunch of new piping to a house to fix some old, bad piping, there's bound to be a few leaks in those new ceramic beauties you just laid in. First, there are 4 players. Yes, sure, there might have been some cost restrictions on putting in another unique nation or what have you, but in an interactive game, 4 is just not enough people for this size of map. Even if 1 or 2 people get bottlenecked by the geography, which is easier than you might think, that leaves 2 players with almost complete freedom to grab victory points. Adding 1 more player to the mix would really make sure that the players have to fight for their cities, not just expand into 5 of them, and then fight 1 minor skirmish with another player to claim their final victory point and win. Second issue, holy bejesus, cavalry is good.
Yeah, unfortunately for this snazzy combat system, which I really, really do want to like, it takes about 2 battles in your first game to realize that cavalry, which just costs 1 more silver game than archers and 2 more silver than regular footmen, are disproportionately good. I did some tests over.
Here's kind of my big qualm, though, the metaphorical Zamboni in the room, if you will. Yeah, you remember orders? Remember how I said they were kind of a big added strategic element to the game? Yeah, they aren't fun at all. Orders, although adding a new strategic depth to the game, feel kind of stifling and awkward. Maybe I'm just bad and dumb, but I don't really like how it reduces your options without giving anything back other than the hope that maybe your plan for this cycle will go well. Which, spoiler alert, it's not. On a very basic game level, the game restricts freedom in order to generate complexity, which is kind of vexing. I want strategy and freedom. Frosting and sprinkles, if you will.
Okay, final summary. Ultimately, Risk Europe strives to be in this awkward place of being more strategic and complex than classic Risk and its variations, all while kind of keeping its attractive approachability. But personally, I feel like if you want to commit to playing a strategic game, you might as well play something that's really strategic and good, like Cyclades, that gives you the hard choices without limiting you as much, as well as stimulating a higher level of actual board strategy than just pushing your unstoppable nuclear Viking horde around from one territory to the next. On the other hand, if you want to play a Risk game, just play Risk. Godstorm, specifically, which is basically the same game, but adds a couple easy to understand pieces and cards. Europe isn't a bad game. It adds some neat new ideas to the franchise and looks great doing it, but it just doesn't serve up on its implied promise to be a better Risk rather than a different Risk. You shouldn't criticize something unless you have suggestions on how to make it better. But instead of, making a new Risk game myself, I just decided to make my own board game instead. Because if you love something enough, you make it a part of your life.